I've just returned from a flying visit to the Edinburgh Festival, the largest arts festival in the world, where for the month of August the city is overtaken by artists, musicians, comedians and thespians and, of course, punters. There are thousands of shows on the Edinburgh Fringe, and because most of them are only an hour long, you can watch multiple shows every day. I heard that the average audience for a Fringe show is 6. So as a writer or performer, you really do have to work hard to pull in the crowds in the face of so much competition. And one of the ways you can do this, of course, is to choose a controversial topic. Now, there used to be many controversial shows on the Fringe. Part of the appeal of the festival was trying to find those amateur theatrical groups who were trying desperately to be shocking. I remember seeing one devised piece about a psychopathic lesbian florist, which was staged in some subterranean cave. I think there were 3 of us in the audience. It was excruciatingly badly written, with melodramatic OTT performances and lots of fake blood. I absolutely loved it. Sadly, these days there's not so many people who are wanting to push the boundaries of good taste, possibly because the price for being controversial in the arts has become too high. But there is always one show every year at the Fringe that causes a stir for broaching a topic that many feel is beyond the limits of acceptability. And this year, that show is called Shannon Matthews The Musical, which is running at Just the Tonic for the whole month, every night at midnight. There was a bit of a gasp from my audience here. And that tells you everything. The show has caused outrage because the subject matter is extremely sensitive. And in case you've forgotten, Shannon Matthews was the little girl who went missing in Dewsbury in 2008 and sparked a search that cost £3.2 million. It transpired that her own mother, Karen Matthews, had hidden her child under a relative's bed in the hope of claiming the reward money. And she'd been making appeals on TV, had tricked the nation, ended up being sentenced to 8 years in prison. And now this bizarre tale has been turned into a foul-mouthed comedy musical, and many people aren't happy about it. Well, I can understand that. It must have been a traumatising experience for the girl, and one can understand why people would deem it an inappropriate subject for a musical. Now, the Dewsbury West councillor Amar Anwar has called for the musical to be banned. So this is what he said. He said, "The musical is sick and bang out of order. Imagine being that poor lass, Shannon, and reliving these cruel and sadistic moments again. This should never be allowed. What that child went through was disgusting and evil." Yes, kidnapping a child is disgusting and evil, but writing a musical about it which mocks the kidnapper, that's not the same thing. And yet critics like Anwar are behaving as though the show is some kind of reenactment of the crime. It's like Ricky Gervais has said, people confuse the subject of the joke with the target of the joke, and they're rarely the same. So should there be any limits in comedy? This seems to be a perennial subject for debate. It just never goes away. Some of the comedians who regularly appear on this channel have been the subject of media controversy because of jokes they have told. Scott Capurro, for instance, was attacked in the press for a comedy show he wrote about incest. He was also banned from Australian TV for a joke that was considered offensive to Christians. Josh Howie, another regular on this show, ended up on the front cover of the Jewish Chronicle for a joke he told about how the Holocaust couldn't happen in the UK, and his grandmother was very disappointed in him. Leo Kearse had a show cancelled by his venue because of complaints that it was transphobic, even though it was co-written by a trans person. It strikes me that a lot of this is down to a general misapprehension of what comedy is. I saw the Shannon Matthews musical last night, and the audience were howling with laughter. They're not laughing at what happened to that poor little girl. She isn't the subject of ridicule. It's the mother and her appalling crimes. Moreover, the reason why the show is so funny is the audacity of the thing. Everything about it is in the worst possible taste, and that's why it works. The audience are laughing in spite of themselves. Laughter, when it's authentic, is an involuntary reflex. It's a far cry from the kind of laughter you see in many comedy shows, where the act says an opinion popular with Guardian readers and the audience laugh to show that they approve. And comedy cannot exist without the possibility of causing offence. We should not be surprised, therefore, to see that comedians are regularly in the news for taking a joke too far. Recently, of course, it's been Jimmy Carr who's been in the firing line with the Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries, even suggesting that the law should be changed to criminalise some of his more controversial jokes if they appear on streaming services. But as an audience member, it's often exhilarating to have your certainties and sensibilities tested. It's almost cathartic. When a comic crosses that imaginary line, we're reminded of why we don't say these things. Comedy doesn't have to be transgressive, but shows like the Shannon Matthews musical remind us that they still can be. So for those people who are criticising the show without having seen it, or who are calling for it to be banned, I've got a solution for you. Just don't buy a ticket. There you go. Problem solved.